Hey, what's good, man? It's your boy Big Dog. Salute to everybody. You see the title of the video. We're going to talk about super teams. And y'all leave your thoughts in the comment section, man. Subscribe to the channel if you're rocking with me. So you have a group of people who like to change narratives, right? To protect a certain player. And that player is LeBron James. I don't know if Clutch Sports is cutting them checks, not only to mainstream media, but even independent media, quote unquote independent media, like on the YouTubes and the Spotifys and all that. Because narratives that they create to protect LeBron James is insanity. They will go in a time machine or they will get the time stone from Thanos and rewrite history to protect the legacy of LeBron James. Now, do they love LeBron James that much? Do they worship LeBron James like Christians worship, God and believe in Jesus Christ? Or are they getting paid to do it? I don't know. But one of the narratives these guys do now is every team is a super team. They go to the past and every great team is a super team now. They want to make the narrative now that a lot of these great teams were super teams now because the backlash LeBron James got from running from the Cleveland Cavaliers first stint and creating a super team in Miami with Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh. So to throw the heat off that, now they want to make teams from the past super teams. One team is the 96 Chicago Bulls, that second three-peat. Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, Dennis Rodman. Were they all great players? That's a fact. All three of them are top 75. Mike and Scottie was on the top 50. That's a fact. But were they a super team? No, they wasn't. You had Michael Jordan, who's the greatest of all time. You got Scottie Pippen, who's one of the all-time greatest defenders in the history of the NBA. And he gave you about 19 points a game. Solid rebounder. Elite defender. He facilitates the offense. He can guard 1 through 4. He did all that. Now they try to use Scottie Pippen. They weaponize Scottie Pippen, by the way. And I tell people, Scottie Pippen is the most underrated and most overrated player now. Because now they try to talk to you like Scottie Pippen was Elgin Baylor or something. Not to give Scottie Pippen his props, but to try to diminish the greatness of Michael Jordan, which is nasty work. But Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, they were the guys. They was the 1-2 punch for the Chicago Bulls dynasty. So then people talk about Dennis Rodman. Was Dennis Rodman great? For sure. Probably the greatest rebounder pound for pound in the history of the league. All-time great defender. But see, people try to use Dennis Rodman to say the Bulls in 96 were a super team. But one thing, Dennis Rodman was not a franchise player. When I say franchise player, you wasn't getting Dennis Rodman on your team to lead your team to the next level. He wasn't giving you 20 points, 25 points a game. He wasn't some big-time scorer. Elite rebounder. Guard tier rebounder. Elite defender. But he wasn't a player you was going to put a team on his back to help lead your team to success. And he wasn't even in his prime. Now, he was still great, but he wasn't like 25-year-old Dennis Rodman, 27-year-old Dennis Rodman, or nothing like that. Like, you got to remember, he started with the Pistons in the 80s. He played on Spurs and everything. He came from the Spurs to the Bulls. Nobody wanted Dennis Rodman. Not because he couldn't play, but it was because other stuff. But as great as Dennis Rodman was, he was not some franchise player. But they tried to say the 96 Bulls were a super team to try to diminish the greatness of Michael Jordan and protect LeBron James. Another team you hear about being a super team is the Showtime Lakers. Kareem, Magic, James Worthy. Elite players. But guess what? All those guys were drafted to their team. Now, some people say, well, what's the difference? Well, the difference is you can have a projection of what a player is going to be. For example, when Magic Johnson was coming through the draft, they knew Magic was going to be one of them ones. Seven Kareem. LeBron James as well. But guess what? They also thought Sam Bowie was going to be one of them ones. For some reason, the Clippers thought Michael Oliver Candy was going to be one of them ones. So you can have a projection of a player, but you really don't know until they do it. So the Lakers were not a super team. By no stretch of the imagination. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, he went to the Lakers in the 70s. Magic got drafted in 79. I think Worthy was drafted, was it 83 or 84? I can't remember the year. You know, they had the Byron Scotts and the Kurt Ramesses and all these other guys. Great team, yes. Elite team, yes. All-time great team for sure. Super team, no. See, they started trying to change the definition of a super team for LeBron James. A super team is you have three franchise players joining up. Like you had the Celtics in 08, 2007, 2008. Now, I think that happened by trades, but it was a super team. Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce, Ray Allen. Now, some people will argue they weren't in their primes. No, they wasn't. No, they wasn't in their primes, but they were still elite players. They were still all elite at the time. They was at the tail end of their primes. But were they a super team? For sure. Did they join together? No. They were trades and moves made, as far as I remember. But they were a super team. Three franchise players joining together. Miami Heat, yeah, LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, who in my opinion was the second or third best players in the league at the time. Chris Bosh, who's getting very underrated now. He was a franchise player for the Raptors. People would say, well, Chris Bosh didn't lead him nowhere. Bro, the man was like a 24-10 guy on Toronto Raptors. He got him to the playoffs. It's not like they had great teams in Toronto around them. And it's funny, Chris Bosh, he didn't make the Heat a super team, but somehow Dennis Rodman, who was not overall the better player than Chris Bosh, made the Bulls a super team. That's weird, but whatever, right? Right, cool. Same thing with Kevin Love. Kevin Love was doing, 25-14 with the Minnesota Timberwolves. They're like, well, they ain't make the playoffs, they ain't do this. That is true. But we got to remember the Minnesota Timberwolves was not that good of a team overall. Also, let's not forget, LeBron and them had the Cavaliers trade the number one pick in the draft, who became Andrew Wiggins, who was expected to be more than he became. Good player, but it was expected more Andrew Wiggins. Which goes back to my point about when you draft a player. But they traded the number one pick for Kevin Love, who was regarded to many as the best big man in the league at the time. Like, I don't forget this. But now they downplay Kevin Love and say he wasn't a superstar, which is a lie. It's a lie. And then you had Kyrie Irving and then LeBron himself. And it's crazy, right? LeBron James, when his super teams win championships, he gets the praise for it. He's the man, blah, blah, blah. But he has somebody like Kevin Durant, who went to the Golden State Warriors. People say, it's the weakest move in history, and I get it. He joined a team that just whooped his behind a few months before. I understand. I get it. I get it 1,000,000%. But hey, he created a super team, right? And I could be nasty with it and argue that that Golden State Warriors team not a super team. I don't feel like doing all that right now. But for the sake of the argument, we say Kevin Durant created a super team with the Golden State Warriors. But guess what, Kevin Durant, he's soft, he weak, he's a BAN, all that. His rings don't count. Right? But all LeBron James rings count when he won with his super teams. You don't see how that BS narrative is? Like, it's crazy, right? Like LeBron James is getting worshipped, and these guys rewrite history to protect this man's legacy. I even had somebody. This wasn't on the internet. This a couple years ago. I had somebody tell me the 2004 Pistons were a super team. I'm like, bro, they became a great team. Nobody was superstars on that team. They became a great team, bro. It was locking everybody down. Now, I think a year later or 2 seasons later, 4 other players made the All-Star team. Ben Wallace, Rip Hamilton, Chauncey Billups, Rasheed Wallace. I said, but they were not a super team. They became All-Stars later. I said, the only player that made an All-Star team when they won the championship at that point, if I'm not mistaken, was Ben Wallace. We're not about to rewrite history and call them a super team. Same I heard about the Spurs with Duncan and Ginobili and Parker. They were a super team. Like, no, they were not. They were all drafted by the Spurs. Nobody seen Tony Parker and Manu Ginobili as superstars. Stars, all-star players, and great players for sure. Superstars, no. And they were all drafted by the Spurs. Like, we about to try to rewrite history of what a super team is. It's 3 franchise players joining together, bro, in their primes.